I chose this film to review this holiday season because many people consider this a Christmas classic, or well, a Christmas movie in general. I don't necessarily agree, but hey, if it means that I get to rewatch this movie, then fine. And you know what? Just because people think it's a Christmas movie, I'm gonna go ahead and make the thumbnail very holiday-ish. So Die Hard is a 1988 action film that follows NYPD officer John McClane, who flies to Los Angeles in order to reconcile with his wife, who he's been separated with for a little while now. And while he's in her office building, this German terrorist group led by Hans Gruber seizes the entire tower, and being the only armed person in the building, John has to fight through all of Gruber's men just to rescue his wife as well as the other hostages. Bruce Willis plays John McClane, who is the most relatable action movie protagonist ever, and before this movie, Willis was known as this comedic TV personality, which he did a pretty good job at. But he did such a great job in this film that it showed him as an action star, but the real reason why we remember John McClane is because of the way he's written. He's not just some tough guy who shoots up the place. When we're introduced to him, we are given just a few scenes to set up who he is as a person, and, you know, before the action comes. And the action actually starts off in the film pretty early, I would say even before the 10-minute mark, if not just a little bit later. In those first few minutes, we see how vulnerable he is with the fact that he's afraid of flying as he's just landing in Los Angeles, and then we also get a few other tidbits about him during a ride in a limo while he's talking to the limo driver, as well as once he gets to the office building, because there's this part where he starts looking around and he looks at a board that shows all the different people's names, and he's actually a little mad to figure out that his wife has actually taken up her maiden name again. And you feel so bad for him because you can tell that he just wasn't expecting this. And of course we have Hans Gruber, who immortalized Alan Rickman long before he played Severus Snape. And the character is one of the top 100 villains of all time according to the American Film Festival. And I think I have a couple of ideas why, and it's not just because of Rickman's amazing performance, and I want to talk about a couple of them. As I said earlier, John McClane is considered by many to be the most relatable action hero ever, and as I've already said, I actually agree with that. And that's mostly because he's portrayed as as an everyday human being. He gets scared, he gets hurt, and he's constantly being outflanked and outsmarted by the villain. And you don't really see that in action films these days. Generally, filmmakers evade putting the hero too far behind the actual villain, and leaving obvious loopholes and easy ways out to get the hero to a final showdown so that they can get the upper hand and win. McClane is completely outclassed because the writers have actually taken the time to conceive an antagonist that is way out of his league. Gruber is the smartest man in the room. His plans are well thought out. He knows a little bit about pretty much everything, or at least he makes it come out as though he does, and that's kind of intimidating. And most importantly, when things change, he improvises. He's very quick on his feet. Every time that McClane is able to get an upper hand on Gruber ends up outmaneuvering him. Especially the moment where they meet face to face is the best moment and best example of how well he improvises and how he can actually outmaneuver McClane. And one thing that makes Gruber a great villain is the fact that instead of being able to overcome him because he's the main protagonist, McClane has to see him as a bit of an obstacle in order to save his wife. And it helps develop the character even further. And Gruber can be seen as the catalyst of McClane's evolution. And one thing that Die Hard started in reference to the protagonist and the antagonist, a lot of action movies have actually replicated this, but they would do a thing where the villain and the hero would not see each other for the longest time. Instead, they'd just be on like a communication device just taunting each other. And it doesn't work in the other movies because Die Hard did it so well. As I said earlier, the film has a few bits of normalcy before the action starts, you know, setting up the characters and everything. But then when it actually starts, Die Hard becomes this riveting and sometimes very claustrophobic experience that holds up just as well today as it did 25 years ago. This fantastic film builds and builds to a very satisfying climax while taking itself seriously, but not too seriously, and never sacrificing anything in order to give more thrills and tension, because there's just enough in this. And the film is great from a writer's level, character level, and also soars because of very crisp editing and marvelous cinematography. This is, in pretty much every way, for me, a masterpiece. Yippie Kiyay, motherfucker, I am giving Die Hard 5 reels. Well, that'll do it for me today. Please subscribe if you haven't already for more reviews and content. And as always, thanks for watching, Merry Christmas, and farewell until the next video.